Most runners think that their speed comes from track repetitions, fast intervals, and finishing workouts super hard. But there's an entire energy system that almost no runner trains directly. We've all heard of the aerobic energy system, the anaerobic energy system, but there is a third energy system, and that is the alactic energy system. And no, it's not strides, it's not speed work, and it's not about gassing yourself out. And it has a huge impact on your running economy, how you finish races, and your long-term durability. Alactic sprints target the ATP PC energy system. This is the most explosive energy system that your body has. These are quick, explosive movements that require no oxygen and no lactate. So given the name alactic, that means they're producing no lactic acid. And before the lactic acid police come for me in the comments, I understand lactic acid is kind of an outdated term. The hydrogen ions that are produced from higher levels of lactate are not present in these kind of sprints when kept short. Key is to keep these sprints short enough so that you're not producing any lactate and therefore avoiding any of the metabolic waste that comes after using a ton of lactate for energy. Lactate will only start to accumulate after about 10 to 13 seconds of intense or high energy running. How are these any different from strides? The term stride is kind of a loose term, right? If you ask your average runner for the definition of a stride, you'll get a variety of answers, but typically a stride is around 15 to 20-second hard push where you're running at about 90% effort, you're all out mile pace. It's really to work on your turnover, your form, and open up your stride. And there's a ton of benefits to doing strides. Keeps your body familiar with moving fast, help keep your hips nice and open and mobile, and keep your form sharp at the same time. However, most people who are doing strides aren't actually sprinting. Otherwise, we'd probably call them sprints and not strides. Now, the only difference between strides and sprints are the effort level. Sprints are gonna be essentially max effort. The reason that jump from 90 to 100% effort is so critical is because of what it does to your central nervous system. When you're running at that max effort, you're training your body to recruit more of your fast twitch muscle fibers. Now, the benefits of training these fast twitch fibers consistently are remarkable. You waste far less energy on your runs. You have more of an elastic energy return because your tendons are stronger, and your form doesn't fall apart when you get tired late in the run. And the best part is that it doesn't interfere with your aerobic system because there is no lactate. Real quick, but very important note, because this is such powerful and explosive work, it's not necessarily the best for beginners or beginning runners. Also, if you're a runner who's dealt with hamstring, calf, Achilles problems, you need to approach these sprints very, very cautiously. If sprinting's ever been a problem for you in the past or you're rehabbing something right now, it's best to get guidance from like a physical therapist or a sprint coach before proceeding with these. The best way to know if you're ready for sprints is to introduce strides first. Once you get really comfortable with the strides, then you can begin to layer in sprints here and there. Later in the video, we'll cover how to know when you're ready to make that transition from strides into sprints in your training. If done properly, these alactic sprints are a very high reward tool to use, but you gotta give them their respect. Okay, so alactic sprinting, is this some new training hack, or where did this even come from? A lot of elite runners used to train like this decades ago, and now I feel like it's become a little bit of a lost art. Way back last century, Coach Arthur Lydiard first introduced these quick, explosive sprints to a few of his athletes. Sometimes they would do them on hills, sometimes they would do them on the track, but he noticed that this was a great way for them to maintain their leg speed throughout the year, because if proper rest is taken between these sprints, they're highly repeatable, again, because that lactate isn't flooding the legs. Back in the 60s and 70s, before they really even knew what lactate was, they just knew that this burning sensation that they were getting in their legs would set their running back quite a bit and often lead to injuries and burnout if it wasn't cleared out properly. The key rule for these sprints though, if they're no longer explosive and you're feeling the burn in your legs, then they are no longer alactic. So alactic is a combination of quality running form and high power output. These aren't conditioning or interval workouts by any means. Now, exactly how long should these sprints be? It can vary slightly, ideally under 10 seconds. When you're first introducing these sprints into your training, 5 to 6 seconds may be more than enough to wake up this alactic energy system and wake up those fast twitch fibers that may have not been trained in a while. Alactic running is ideal for developing this brain to muscle neural connection and helping with running coordination at higher speeds. Strides are a bit more relaxed, a bit more rhythmic, and last for like 15 to 30 seconds, depending on exactly how you train them. We all know from biology class that stress plus rest equals adaptation. The level of stress that these sprints place on your body can't be matched by stride, so you're not gonna get those same adaptations that you would. And these sprints demand the highest threshold of motor unit recruitment, which includes those fast twitch type 2 muscle fibers. Everyone has a certain amount of fast twitch fibers, although runners that do marathons and ultras typically have a higher ratio of slow twitch to fast twitch. That doesn't mean that you don't have any fast twitch. And if you never do these specific exercises to train them, then they won't really be available to you come race day. Now, obviously faster interval work like 200, 400 repeats also recruits these fast twitch fibers, but when you get into these longer intervals, these are often associated with higher levels of lactate and form breakdown. Therefore, they're much more strenuous on your body. And yes, while doing these sorts of repetitions are definitely necessary to sharpen up and get you ready for a race, they're not as repeatable and as safe on your body to do throughout the year compared to these alactic sprints. Okay, so how can you safely progress these into your training routine? As mentioned before, start with the strides. Focus on moving your legs and your feet pretty fast, keeping your upper body relaxed. You can start anywhere with 4 to 8 strides once or twice a week. After you get super comfortable with these strides and everything's feeling healthy, start to sprinkle in 1 or 2 sprints at the end of your stride session. And remember, don't do them as long as you would do a stride. Even 5 or 6 seconds are enough to stimulate those fast twitch fibers. If your legs still feel snappy at the end of the session, that's good. Stop there. We don't need to overdo it during your first couple reps. Now, once you feel like you're ready for a full alactic sprint session, this is how you can go about it. 4 to 6 reps at 6 to 8 seconds. Start with just once a week. Now, is one of these sprint sessions gonna transform your running? No, but if you did one of these sessions every week throughout the year, you can just imagine what that would do for your running. And as with most things in running, it's best to try and leave your ego out of this and listen to your body, feedback that it's giving you as you're trying new things. If you've been running long enough, you know that's easier said than done sometimes, but a little reminder here and there is good. Okay, a few cues to know when you're finished with your session. You feel any tightness in your hamstring, calf, or posterior chain, cut it right there. If you feel any tightness escalating from rep to rep, that's a bad sign, stop there. If you feel your speed dropping off after a couple reps, that's a good sign to cut it, because that could be a sign that you've already exhausted those fast twitch fibers. Where should you go about doing these sprints? As we mentioned before, hills are good, but you want to start with something very gradual. If the hill is too steep, you're actually cutting your stride length a bit short and not getting that full range of motion. So a slight incline, like 2 to 4% is best. And obviously check the road or the dirt, make sure there's no holes, potholes, anything like that where you could twist an ankle. If you have really solid form and good running mechanics, then some flat grass or even a track can be a great option. Lydiard was famous for having some of his elite runners do quote unquote wind sprints on the track, where they would sprint for 50 meters, float or jog for about 50 meters, do another 50-meter sprint, and do that for a couple miles. Again, this was for his advanced level athletes. Now, obviously a 50-meter float isn't a ton of rest after a 50-meter sprint. When you're first starting out, you're gonna want more rest than that. Usually closer to 90 seconds to 2 minutes is typically enough time to let these high energy phosphates restore before the next rep. Now, exactly how you want to go about that rest, whether that's walk or jog or just standing and letting your breathing and heart rate return to normal, that's pretty much up to you. You just want to ensure that you're able to match the same intensity for each sprint. When is the best time to do them throughout the week? This will depend a little bit on your preference. I've done them after an easy run, after a steady run, after a warm-up, but before a fartlek workout or a sub-threshold effort. The most important thing here is that you are very warmed up, like at least a solid 15 or 20 minutes of running before jumping into these sprints. If you skip the warm-up, you're asking for some sort of trouble. I'm not gonna dig too deep on the form, but a few cues that are super important to remember: keeping your posture tall, leaning forward, not bending at the waist, but leaning into it and letting gravity do a little bit of the work for you. And think about keeping your feet and your legs moving as fast as possible. So they should be landing right underneath you, and you shouldn't be reaching out or overstriding. And your upper body should be pretty relaxed, and your arms should be moving forward and not side to side. Everything should be moving in the direction that you're going, which is straight ahead. A golden rule here though is to leave a couple reps in the tank. So you should feel sharper at the end of the session than when you did when you started. If you're leaving feeling exhausted, you probably overdid it just a little bit. As with anything, this will take a little bit of trial and error and some practice, so it's better to err on the side of caution. As they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you leave these fast twitch fibers untrained and underdeveloped, you won't be able to access them later in races when you need them most. For example, in the marathon, later in the race, once your slow twitch fibers have become exhausted and the glycogen within them have been depleted, they often turn to these fast twitch fibers for some help to get you across the finish line and finish the race. And if you haven't tapped into them and trained them in any way throughout the year, probably won't show up for you on race day when you need them most. And while yes, there are other ways to recruit these fast twitch fibers, for example, doing long aerobic runs, which we'll cover in a future video, these sprints are just another tool in your toolkit to train these up and to simply just get the most out of your runs that you can. If you primarily race like 5K, 10K, this will help you a lot with changing gears while being at a high cadence and help with your sprint finish. Some of the top mistakes you can make with these alactic sprints is doing them for too long. If you do them for too long, like 10, 15, 20 seconds, they turn into a glycolytic workout, which essentially floods your body and your legs with lactate. Don't want that. Another mistake is too little of rest between reps. You really want your body to recover between these reps so you can return with that full level of explosiveness for the next rep. If you do too many of these reps or do them while you're tired, again, your form is likely not going to be there, and this could lead to more problems than benefits. If you know you don't have the best running mechanics, start out on that gradual hill, because running on a flat or even a downhill is very jarring and taxing on your body if you don't have pretty solid form. Is this something you guys are gonna try out, or are you gonna stick with your intervals and your strides? If you guys wanna see more videos like this, leave me a follow, it'll really help out the channel. And let me know if there's any topics you would like to see covered in future videos. Thanks for tuning in, happy running and happy sprinting. I'll catch you on the next one.